This week on The Other Side, a former top public servant admits that the political and bureaucrat class of our country has failed our kids. You won't believe what they said and who said it. Aussie teachers and nurses are fighting back against transgender ideology being forced upon them and the children that they're supposed to protect. And they're sick of getting into all sorts of trouble if they dare push back against the bullies who won't tolerate any views on the matter except their own. New Zealand's new Deputy Prime Minister is setting an example for us all on how political leaders should be standing up to the bullies of identity politics. We hope Susan Lee is watching carefully. And one state government has banned political donations altogether. But is this idea as good as it sounds, or is there a catch for our freedom and liberty? All that and more this week, because it's time you got the other side of the story. G'day Sydney, g'day Gold Coast, g'day Hobart, and good luck with the Tasmanian election this weekend, and g'day Australia. This is episode 418 of The Other Side for the week commencing Friday, July 18, 2025. I'm Damien Curry. The Other Side is your deep dive on the important issues that matter in Australia and that affect us from around the world from a different classical liberal perspective. A new show drops every Friday night at 7 p.m, and clips from our Friday night shows drop throughout the following week, most nights at around 7 p.m, so you can watch any way you like, long form or short form. If you like what you see, please support us at othersidetv.com.au. There's one New Zealand politician that our lame Aussie pollies could learn a thing or two from when it comes to standing up for what you actually believe in and truly leading rather than just lamely following. David Seymour, once a lone voice in Parliament, is now New Zealand's Deputy Prime Minister. He is the leader of ACT New Zealand, a libertarian-leaning party that champions such radical and nutty ideas as free markets, individual responsibility, and smaller government. Oh my God, could you imagine the Australian Liberal Party actually standing up for those crazy things? I mean, that'd make them a Liberal Party that stood up for political ideas and values that are actually classical liberal. In New Zealand, they have an unusual parliamentary system where around 50 seats in Parliament are what they call list seats. They're not connected to the 72 geographic electorates, but they're allocated to parties after the election based on the proportion of the total vote that party got. So they have much less of a uni-party lib-lab situation like we have in Australia. Minor parties in New Zealand actually get a voice, and the New Zealand ACT Party now has 11 seats. That's about 10% of the House. In the last election in November 2023 that turfed out Labor following Jacinda Ardern's departure, the major Conservative party in New Zealand, the Nationals, won the election. But to form a government, they had to join in coalition with minor parties, including the Libertarian ACT Party and Winston Peters' New Zealand First Party. Under the deal, the National Party leader, Christopher Luxon, became the Prime Minister. And it was agreed that Winston Peters would be the Deputy Prime Minister for the first half of his term, of the political term until May this year, and that ACT's David Seymour would become the Deputy Prime Minister after May for the second half of the term. Now, Seymour pulls no punches, and he's got zero tolerance for any kind of divisive neo-Marxist style identity politics, as a reporter learned quick smart after the national budget was handed down a few weeks back. This reporter asks him to respond to the Labor Party's complaint that $1 billion worth of Maori funding had been cut from the budget. And check out David Seymour's response.
Mr Seymour, what's your response to the Labor Party saying that $1 billion of Māori funding has gone from this budget?
Well, there's no such thing as Māori funding. There's funding for New Zealanders. I'm really getting tired of people trying to racially profile us, put us into categories based on our ancestral whakapapa, and then try and tag the budget funding for that. It's just got to stop.
Why?
Because it's racist.
Wow, it's just racist. Exactly. It's the definition of racism, to divide your country by its citizens' ancestral heritage. And it's the road to collapse for any nation. Once you start handing out privileges and funding to special groups based on their race, you will have huge problems of division. And that division will continue to be fueled and promoted by those that gain from it. David Seymour is having none of it.
So are you against funding specifically for Māori?
I'm against any kind of race-based targeting of funding. I'm opposed to people who want to put all their emphasis on the 0.1% of human DNA that's different from each other and ignore the 99.99% that unites us.
So Pacifica Funding as well, you would be against?
Well, I think you can work that out, yeah. Well, thank you very much for your questions, including the racist ones, and we'll see you later.
Thanks very much for your questions, including the racist ones. Love it. Well done, David Seymour. You'll hear rich inner-city Liberals and Labor and Green voters in Australia now saying, oh, but the poor Indigenous people. But why? Why are they poor? Don't they share the same country we do, the same world-leading levels of opportunity, the same great legal and economic infrastructure and business opportunities that a modern civilization brings as all of us share? Don't almost all of us have ancestors in distant history who faced horrible injustices and who had to rise up and overcome adversity? Only the rich left-leaning elites are so patronising and condescending that they think Indigenous people need help from them. Poverty and social problems in remote communities today actually exist across races and have more to do with the tyranny of distance and systemic psychosocial issues than colonisation. Indigenous peoples in Australia and New Zealand are among the freest people with the most opportunity in the world. Why? Because of European colonisation mainly. And it's time non-Indigenous Australians stopped apologising. Many of us aren't of Anglo-British origin anyway, me included. You don't hear us complaining about the Anglo-British systems or values on which this nation was built. This week, the ACT Party in New Zealand held its annual rally in Auckland. In his main speech, David Seymour reflected on the horrors of woke culture and the enormous damage done by Jacinda Ardern and her Labor Party for 6 years.
Those 6 years of long trouble has left us fatigued. Many people have been left angry and more open to blaming someone than usual. And the scourge of identity politics has left us even more primed than usual to point the finger at someone else. That postmodern disease has set New Zealanders against each other. The idea that our differences are greater than our similarities is a toxic belief. It makes it harder to solve real practical problems when you're busy finding reasons to resent a fellow New Zealander who's actually pretty much just like you. It's tangata whenua against tangata tiriti. It's boomer versus zoomer. It's wealthy against poor. It's urban against farmer. It's employer against employee. Tenant against landlord.
Yep, it's the politics of division, the old Marxist game of fostering hate and a false sense of oppression to seize power and control, all done in the name of fake kindness and the kind of fairness that actually destroys liberty, individual reward for effort, and ultimately the wealth of the nation, leaving everyone equally poorer and equally suffering.
And identity politics has a close cousin I call zero-sum thinking. Zero-sum thinking is perhaps the most dangerous frame of thinking that's affected Western society in these past 2 decades. It fits like a glove with identity politics because it's the idea that for you to do better, someone else must do worse. Now, this has happened because it's a deeply human response to divide the world into heroes and villains, people who do good and people who do bad. It's true that sometimes that does happen, but the reality is that most people, most of the time, are actually trying to make things work. And what's more, the success of one group, perhaps someone who's made 500 hammers, often benefits another. Peter Beck's genius has made him very rich, and good on him. But it's also ignited and given liftoff to a New Zealand space industry. When we lose the insight of positive sum thinking, we believe in zero sum and we become more divided, poorer, worse off politically, worse off culturally, and worse off economically. The reality is, there's only 5 million of us here. We all have far more in common than what separates us, and our success in New Zealand is interdependent. The problems that we all face are shared. And the solutions will only be visible if first we see that basic fact.
Yeah, but if a Kiwi can come here and live in Australia and work here freely, why can't their Deputy Prime Minister become our Prime Minister? Can't we just get him over here? I mean, there's 27 million of us. We really need him. He'd do much more good here, and maybe he could still be Deputy Prime Minister over there. Oh, sorry. I was just on the phone to the Immigration Department doing a little bit of research. Where were we? Oh, yes, David Seymour. Could you imagine Susan Lee being able to sell an idea or speak like that? It simply would never happen. So far, all she's shown us is that she's a follower, not a leader. She wouldn't know how to stand up to the dominant left-wing cultural elites in our Labor Green government or our appalling leftist media if her life depended on it. And the modern Liberal Party is a party of wannabe, bureaucrat-minded, big government-loving followers. Not a true leader in sight, except Alex Antic maybe. The Liberals need to find about 50 to 100 David Seymours and let them run the show if they ever want to be in government again. If you like The Other Side, one of the best ways you can support us is by signing up for the products of our sponsors. And one of our best sponsors is PIAV, the virtual private network that stops people spying on your internet activity. It'll keep you and your family truly safe from the prying eyes of big governments and corporations without slowing down your internet speeds. And you can watch Netflix or other streaming services using your regular accounts with them as if you're viewing from any country in the world. You can sign up for less than $3 a month and get a whopping 83% off the normal price. Just go to piavpn.com/otherside to sign up and you'll get the discount. And you'll get more info on those special deals if you check it out. That's piavpn.com/otherside. The man who used to be the head of the Australian Treasury under both John Howard and Kevin Rudd said this week that the federal government is mostly to blame for stealing $500,000 from the average Aussie worker, every one of us. This is Dr. Ken Henry who said this. And when he was Secretary of the Treasury from 2000 to 2011, he chaired the Future Tax System Review, which became known as the Henry Tax Review. It was a document published in 2010 credited with shaping Australian tax policy for the past decade. He's an influential guy, and he said this week that the federal government has a spending problem and is partly to blame for what the Australian newspaper reported as the robbery of $500,000 from the average worker in lost productivity gains. Now, Dr. Henry has a PhD in economics, and he is generally seen as more aligned with Labor-style economic thinking. Although he has served under both Liberal and Labor governments, his public statements suggest that he leans towards big government, particularly when it comes to government intervention in the economy, progressive tax reform, and climate change action. In fact, he's now the chair of the Australian Climate and Biodiversity Foundation. So he's not the kind of guy who would ordinarily be saying that any government, especially a Labor government, spends too much or that the government is too big, unless it actually was. He said on Wednesday at the National Press Club that there's a lack of fiscal discipline in this country. Now, fiscal policy is the government's spending. It's the policies of how much they're going to tax and how much they're going to spend. So when economists say that there's a lack of fiscal discipline, it means the government is splashing out on the national credit card and is overspending. Tell us something we don't already know, Ken. The Australian reports that Dr. Henry says Australia is staring down the barrel of a rapid rise in taxes if it's going to be able to pay for all the Albanese Chalmers government overspending. And get this, back when he wrote the Henry Review report, he put the kibosh on any idea of having an unrealised capital gains tax on super. He complains that all of his report's recommendations were knocked back by the then Labor Treasurer Wayne Swan. And guess who Wayne Swan's main advisor was back in 2010? Jim Chalmers. Dr. Henry said some very important things. He called for economic reforms to get mining and housing projects going, to activate more economic growth. And he said that we should all be angry at our collective failure to design economic structures, including environmental regulations, that underpin confidence in a better future for our children and our grandchildren. We should be angry, folks. We are angry, Ken. We've been angry for years, but it's not our collective failure. Hard-working small and medium-sized business people have been telling government bureaucrats in the country for years that the government is not doing its job properly, that it's over-regulating us all to death and grossly overspending, that both political parties are negligently playing political games with their positions of power, and that public service leaders like him have been letting us down. So don't play the collective failure line with us. You failed. Government failed. Senior bureaucrats failed. Politicians failed. And I hope that's what you meant when you said collective failure. And you're not including the actually productive Australians who take risks and stick their necks out and put their proverbial on the line every single day of their lives trying to run businesses in this terrible government environment. They didn't fail. They pressed on in spite of all your failures, and they still do. And so do the tradies and workers who get up every day and plug on to keep this country going. Dr. Henry went on to say that the average full-time Australian worker has been robbed of about $500,000 over the past 25 years because of our failure to meet that level of productivity growth. The Australian newspaper reports that the Australian Treasury says spending as a percentage of our total GDP, even if you take out all that COVID stimulus, is going to be at the highest level it's been at in 40 years. The government spending will be 27% of the country's total GDP this financial year. It's a position that Jim Chalmers admits is unsustainable. And Dr. Henry says that the Charter of Budget Honesty Act, which is designed to promote transparency, discipline and accountability in the federal government's spending policy, is now in breach. And it's been in breach for a long, long time. It's a pity that act, which I've got to admit I hadn't even heard of, and you'd be forgiven for not knowing about it, that particular act should come with jail sentences or massive fines for politicians who breach it. So I stand by what we've been saying on the show for years now. Big tax is on the way. It won't stop with just an unrealised capital gains tax limited to rich people with more than $3 million in super. I reckon we'll see a 12 or 15% GST soon, which will be an inflationary train wreck. Labor governments never look at their overspending and the credit card bill and think, oh, gee, we better rein in our splurging. Oh, no. They just go out and find new ways that they can steal from you, the productive, hardworking, risk-taking innovators. And I frankly have no idea how we're ever going to fight or fix this while we've got an opposition Liberal Party that seems to be quite happy to accept the status quo and too many fellow Australians who just don't get it or just don't care yet. Prime Minister Albanese is back from his 6-day China trip after visiting 3 big cities, Beijing, Shanghai and Chengdu. It's Canberra's boldest effort yet to reset ties, expand trade and manage strategic tensions with China. In Beijing, Albo held his annual leaders' talks with China's presidents Xi Jinping, Premier Li Qiang and others, reaffirming Australia's support for a stable One China policy, which is all about Taiwan independence. In case you didn't know, Australia's One China policy recognises the People's Republic of China, that's Beijing, the mainland, as the sole legal government of China, including Beijing's claim over Taiwan. We officially do not recognise Taiwan as a sovereign country, and we do not officially support Taiwan independence. But we maintain unofficial economic, cultural and people-to-people relations with Taiwan, and we oppose any unilateral changes to the status quo, including any forced reunification. It's all comfortably ambiguous and walking a diplomatic tightrope. Taiwan can't be recognised as an independent nation in Australia's diplomatic dealings, and we can't form any official government-to-government ties with Taiwan. Anthony Albanese has expressed concern about recent military escalations in the Taiwan Strait. He stressed that Australia wants the status quo maintained, and he's refused to say if Australia would support the US in a conflict over Taiwan. Now, Donald Trump himself hasn't publicly commented on that, but some US officials have taken a firmer stance and have been urging Australia to clarify its military intentions regarding Taiwan, putting indirect pressure on Albanese. One such person is the Pentagon's policy chief, Elbridge Colby, and that's significant because Colby is the guy who's leading the AUKUS review. Meanwhile, former first-term Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton, who had a big falling out with the president, made some amusing comments to The Australian this week. He said it was unlikely that Albo's visit to China and his fourth meeting with Xi Jinping would have seriously even registered with the US president, questioning Mr. Trump's own focus on the strategic threat that's posed by Beijing. Mr. Bolton told The Australian that the Pentagon review might advise backing out of the deal, the AUKUS deal, or changing it in some way, but that it was hard to say how seriously the review's findings would be actually taken by Trump, and that there was little point in the Prime Minister trying to secure a meeting with President Trump because it could backfire and even endanger the deal. At the G7 meeting last month, President Trump and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer reaffirmed the commitment to AUKUS during a news conference. Best to let sleeping dogs lie seems to be John Bolton's advice to Albo. Anthony Albanese also emphasised to President Xi the importance of freedom of navigation in our waters and concerns over recent Chinese naval live-fire exercises near our maritime zones. He pressed Xi on those drills in the Tasman Sea by China back in February, which led to flight diversions, and he said he wanted greater transparency. The Chinese side compared their drills to routine Australian exercises. On the trade and investment side of things, Chinese Premier Li called for fairer access for Chinese investors into Australia. Albo said that our foreign investment laws and screening is fair and that it safeguards national interest, not targeting any particular country. In Shanghai, the Prime Minister highlighted Australia and China's joint work in decarbonising steel and backed greater medtech cooperation. And while in Chengdu, Mr. Albanese embraced some panda diplomacy with visits to conservation centres, and he launched the 2026 Australian Open Wildcard Playoff. That's a tournament that's held in Chengdu each year where top-ranked players from the Asia-Pacific region compete for main draw wildcards into the Australian Open. The winners of the men's and women's singles get direct entry into the Aussie Open main draw. Anyway, the state-run newspaper, the China Daily, praised Albanese's approach as pragmatic, crediting him with helping stabilise Australia-China relations. But back home, critics have said he was too deferential. Australia is highly dependent on trade with China, though, perhaps way too dependent on an authoritarian communist state. But China accounts for 1/3 of Australia's total exports, 179 billion Aussie dollars, last count. That's well over half of that is iron ore, about 105 billion worth. Coal and gas are about 20 billion each. Education's about 18 billion. And food like cereals and meat tops 7 billion. Our two-way trade with China totals 312 billion. So our economies are very intertwined. Good to see regulators doing something useful for a change with the announcement this week that there will be a possible total ban on card surcharges, those sneaky little 1% add-ons that pop up whenever you pay for anything with a card at EFTPOS machines. The government's supporting the Reserve Bank's proposal to outlaw these charges. Now, you may be wondering what the Reserve Bank's got to do with any of this, but the Reserve Bank actually has jurisdiction over card payment systems and surcharges because it's the regulator of Australia's payment system under federal law. There you go. They do more than just set interest rates. Now, if you watch this show regularly, then you're an Aussie who kind of understands economics, and you probably realise that just because these charges won't get added on as a little surprise at the end of your transaction, it doesn't mean that those charges are going to just disappear altogether because they exist for a reason, obviously. Now, retailers add on the charges because that's what their banks charge them to cover the costs of administering the payments. The Reserve Bank has allowed retailers to add on the charges 22 years ago so that we, the customers, could decide if we want to pay them and have the convenience of using our cards or whether we'd like to use cash instead. It seems that most people are happy to pay that 1% for the convenience. Cash payments are down to just 17% of all retail payments. The banks and credit card giants can't be providing that service for free, for sure, but given the volume they've got now, are they ripping us off a bit? Well, since cash usage has collapsed, these electronic payment surcharges add up to about $1.2 billion a year. The banks and Visa and MasterCard, the big credit card companies, say they need that revenue to fund the transactions and to support all their anti-fraud and theft recovery efforts. But the RBA's head, Michelle Bullock, says it's time to put a cap on it. The bank wants to help small business by putting a cap on how much they have to pay to the banks. And it says that 90% of businesses will be better off under their planned reductions. Payment companies are going to have to openly publish their fees too, and that's likely to encourage businesses to find better deals and hopefully encourage some competition. Whatever they still end up charging us, though, we will still be paying it at the EFTPOS machine. It'll hopefully be a bit less, and we won't get any nasty surprises because it'll actually be built in to the price tag.
You're watching The Other Side with Damien Coorey, Australia's best independent news commentary show, bringing you up to speed on the issues that matter most. Simply subscribe for free on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button and bell, so you'll be notified whenever we post anything. And to really stay in touch, check out our independent website at othersidetv.com.au. You can sign up for free there too, or join the exclusive side and help support our show for less than $5 a month. This is The Other Side.
You know, it's easy to miss all the subtle things that government does to minimise our rights or change the rules to suit themselves. We even have situations in Australia where the two major political parties, Labor and Liberal, make laws collectively that are designed to keep smaller parties out of the game completely. For example, South Australia's Labor government boasted at the beginning of this month that its world-leading political donations ban was now in effect, making it a bold new era in the state's democracy. Under the reforms, it is now illegal for anyone to make or for any politician to accept an electoral donation if they are part of a registered political party, a member of parliament, a candidate or group of candidates. If you break these brave new laws, you will face a delightfully friendly and highly democratic 10 years locked up in a prison cell. Like a lot of laws that erode our freedoms, this sounds great in theory. I'd like to know much, much more about where the Greens and the Teals get all their massive campaign cash from. But there's a few points of liberty that we should consider here. Why should any Australian not be allowed to put their cash where they want it to go in supporting a political candidate? Sure, make businesses, unions and lobby groups disclose their donations and put limits on them, fine. But if Jane Citizen wants to give $100 to her local candidate, why should any government be allowed to stop her? That doesn't sound very democratic to me at all. One of the biggest concerns here, and it's a very important one, was that it might turn out that unions would be exempted. The state of Queensland has a terribly biased law in which donations from unions are okay, but donations from companies in the property industry are not. Gee, I wonder which side of politics benefits most from that little tweaking of the rules. No doubt David Crisafulli's LNP government in the Sunshine State will now fix that little Labor racket soon, and good on him. But South Australia will be banning donations from unions, as Premier Peter Malinauskas told the ABC.
There has been a financial connection between the trade union movement and the Labor Party for over 100 years, and we're severing that link now. But it's my view that it's a far more pure objective of removing money from politics altogether. And if we as a Labor government want to get money out of politics from big business, then we've got to be willing to do it for unions as well in order to genuinely level the playing field.
Now, look, he seems like a good guy. He's probably genuine there, but I do get a little suspicious when pollies say they're doing the right thing. But credit where credit's due. If that's genuine, give him a medal. The reforms also regulate the independent political expenditure of all third parties. That includes businesses, unions, lobby groups and think tanks. Any group wanting to influence the outcome of an election, not by donating to any political party or politicians, but just by buying their own ads or running their own campaigns, even they will be subject to an expenditure cap of $450,000. Now, again, this all sounds nice in theory, but we will need to keep a very close eye on unintended negative consequences that may emerge. Now, another concern about all this was that a political donation ban would bias the incumbent big parties. As I said, we've seen other kinds of terrible laws, and some at a federal level that are clearly designed to massively disadvantage minor parties, giving Lib Lab a big advantage and perpetuating this uni-party perception of Aussie politics. But again, South Australia is claiming to have put a safeguard in place that will still allow new candidates not already in Parliament and not part of an incumbent party already in Parliament to take some donations.
We've very deliberately crafted the legislation in concert with advice that we received from an expert panel and the advocacy of independent organisations like the Centre for Public Integrity. to ensure that these reforms aren't about baking in incumbency. In fact, where we've ended up, I think the opposite is true, where now would-be candidates will be able to get access to public funding in a way that wasn't available to them in the past, while at the same time, non-incumbent independent candidates and non-incumbent political parties will also be able to maintain their fundraising efforts. They'll be able to receive donations up to $5,000.
Okay, so it seems, again, like they're trying to do the right thing. But I really reckon this one is a bit of a sleight of hand, and I'm just not buying it. Sorry, Pete. If a minor party like One Nation, the Libertarians, the Greens, or SA Best already has just one MP in Parliament, they won't be exempted. Likewise for incumbent independents. Now, this does give the major parties an unfair advantage and promote incumbency, and I think it stinks. So I hope the good people of South Australia will keep a very close eye on how all this actually plays out in the years ahead. Surely just basic funding caps and full disclosures are all we need to protect our democracy turning into an American fundraising festival. This all seems to be a bit illiberal and a step too far. Another sneaky law that came in last year that we missed reporting on is a federal law that's removed the presumption of equal shared parental responsibility from the Family Law Act. What does that mean? Well, it means that courts no longer automatically assume that it's in a child's best interest for both parents to have an equal say in major long-term decisions. Before this law came in, the Family Law Act included a presumption that it was in a child's best interest for parents to have equal shared parental responsibility, equal rights to make major long-term decisions about their children, about things like education, healthcare, and religious upbringing. But the new laws claim to put the focus on whatever is, quote, in the best interests of the child, unquote, when determining parenting arrangements. And again, this sounds like a lovely law, putting the kids' interests first. But according to men's rights groups, what it actually is doing in practice is it's taking the power away from parents and handing it to the state via the court and the state-appointed children's lawyers. And guess which parent usually loses the authority? The court can now make more tailored arrangements, potentially including sole parental responsibility for certain issues, or a mix of shared and sole responsibility. This change wasn't about protecting kids from abuse, as they claim when it was brought in, because there were already laws for the state to step in if abuse was an actual factor. Andrew Gray from the podcast The Man Show claims some officers of the court seem to be using their power to push their own agendas, and it's time for men to speak out loudly about this.
We need a growing number of voices, whether they be face-to-face, whether they be on platforms like this, whether they be in, public meetings, a growing number of voices who point out the obvious, that the system we've got is broken. And to say it loud and courageous, it is broken. And a lot of people are stuck, as we know, just on the gender warfare side of it, or men do this, or women do this. Well, those things may sporadically be true or not, but the big problem is the damage that's been caused is to children and family units as a whole. And one of the most obvious things legislatively that's got to be advocated for is that when, very sadly, a partnership or a marriage breaks up and there are children involved, the default response should be that the time and the custody with the children is automatically set at 50-50. And there needs to be a serious and watertight case against the father or the mother. And I don't mean just a loose allegation, an actual watertight case that one of those parties is unable to provide safe and steady parenting. And unless that's present, every other allegation and label should be thrown out for the children's sake.
That's Andrew Gray from The Man Show. He's on YouTube. Check him out.
The Other Side with Damien Coorey is Australia's best independent news commentary show, bringing you up to speed and diving deep on the issues that matter most in around an hour. So you don't miss a thing. Subscribe now to our YouTube channel at Other Side Oz by clicking the button and the bell below the picture frame. And follow us on X now at Other Side Oz. That's AUS at Other Side Oz. It's free. This is The Other Side.
Conservative teachers around Australia have had enough of trans ideology being presented to kids in schools, and now they're fighting back. The teachers are demanding an end to what some of them believe to be a form of child abuse. New research among members of the Alternative Teachers Union, the non-left-wing Teachers Professional Association of Australia, has revealed that 91% of their members believe transgender ideology should not be taught in schools. The TPAA survey made the staggering finding that up to 82% of schools either allow or encourage the use of transgender pride flags in classrooms and around school grounds. Many teachers are asking what purpose this could possibly serve. There's concern that this is a sinister exercise in exerting influence on children so that they associate themselves with the ideologies that the flag represents. The numbers suggest that this is precisely what's happening. Remember, we're talking here about what's appropriate for kids. It's one thing to teach acceptance and kindness towards people who are different, but it's another altogether to tell kids that everyone can and should consciously think about their gender and sexuality and actively choose it, as if it's not something given to us by nature and as if biological science is not a thing. Now, that's not teaching acceptance and kindness. That's full-on ideological indoctrination with an ideology that is barking mad and delusional and is not based on any kind of science whatsoever. That's not to say that there aren't some transgender people out there, but to not stand up loudly and firmly against this being forced on kids as an ideology and remain silent is in itself immoral. Edward Schuller is the National Secretary of the Teachers Professional Association of Australia, the TPAA, and he joins us now. Edward, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me on, Damien.
Interesting survey. Now, you guys, before we get into this, you are the Alternative Teachers Union. Most states have a sort of mainstream teachers union that's traditionally aligned with the Labor Party. But you know, how did you come about? How long have you been around, and how big are you now?
Yeah, so we're formed by a number of nurses, a number of teachers rather, that were completely fed up with the way that the union was being run. This is back in 2019.
Right.
So begun in Queensland, and then from there spread across Australia. So we're approaching 6 years in operation now, and we've got thousands of teachers across Australia. Queensland being our leading state, but I think Victoria is our fastest growing now.
Right. And have you noticed that you're getting members precisely because the left-wing teachers union aren't standing up against this trans ideology stuff?
Yeah, there's definitely been a correlation, not just with the transgender issue, but with any political issues that the unions seem to push. Whenever they do that, whether it's the voice to Parliament a couple of years ago, but particularly in recent times with this transgender issue as it raises its head more in schools, we're definitely seeing an increase in members who are rightfully fed up that this is sort of being forced onto them. So teachers are caught in the crosshairs here by Department of Education policy, sort of government union policy as well. And then in the private system, they still need federal funding. And we know that the government of the day isn't particularly rational, let's say, when it comes to this ideology. So we've seen a sharp increase in members, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's fair and makes sense, I guess, that there are teachers out there who aren't of a left-wing political persuasion, and if the mainstream unions are so strongly aligned with Labor and with the Greens that they're going to start pushing on every left-wing ideological campaign or political campaign, then there should be an alternative choice for teachers. And you also have a nurses union, of course, which we'll talk a bit about later too as well. But getting onto this issue, how young are we talking here in terms of what grade levels this trans ideology stuff is being introduced to kids?
Yeah, there was a lot of information about that in the survey, but perhaps an anecdote is best to start off with. I was in a Victorian kindergarten not too long ago to catch up with one of our members there. I walk in, transgender pride flags all over the place.
In a kindergarten?
In a kindergarten.
Oh, my God.
And you sort of think, why are we pushing an ideology which confuses sex and gender onto children? I mean, how is that relevant to children? That's why I think our members are rightly saying there's something else going on here. This is a bit more sinister, or far more sinister than the acceptance that they like to say this whole ideology is about. It's really and it's having a really bad impact as well. And the gender survey that we did was actually sparked from a rise in sexual incidents survey that we did. There's been reports of 4-year-olds sexually abusing each other in Queensland childcare centres. And obviously we heard what happened in Victorian childcare centres, but even in kindergarten, there's reports that, children are accessing pornography at a really young age, and that has an impact as well. But this ideology, how is it relevant to kids? And I think the frustration and the anger, really, particularly for teachers who are often parents themselves, is this is having a really corrosive effect on children right now. So it's not just the ideology that they're saying is the abuse, which is the case, but this is manifesting in a very, very evil way.
I'm just stunned by what you're telling me. That's unbelievable. I've heard bad things, but that really... Look, I mean, there is just... I see no reason whatsoever, not even for the question of acceptance or tolerance or creation, which is how it's all justified. I see no reason to be discussing these matters with children until high school. And even in high school, it should just be a passing mention that, oh yeah, a small percentage of people are transgender and you shouldn't pick on them.
Yeah.
That's it. What more do you need? You don't need to be promoting and pushing this stuff constantly.
Yeah.
All right, I want to play this clip from America. This is Carol Markowitz. She's a leading campaigner against this in America, and she's written books. She's very, very well known all over the United States. It's a clip from a video she put together for the conservative education channel PragerU a couple of years back. Here, John.
At what age is it appropriate for grammar school teachers to discuss issues like sex and gender with their students? Should it be done with kids as young as pre-K, second grade, fifth? Even a decade ago, the most common answer would have been never. These are simply not appropriate subjects for young children. If, for some reason, they did have to be raised, it would be the parents' job, not the teachers. Today, it's much different. New Jersey first graders will learn about gender identity under new sex education guidelines. A sample lesson plan reads as follows. You might feel like you're a boy, even if you have body parts, as some people might tell you are girl parts. You might feel like you're a girl, even if you have body parts, as some people might tell you are boy parts. And you might not feel like you're a boy or a girl, but you're a little bit of both. No matter how you feel, you're perfectly normal. The Evanston-Skokie School District 65 in Illinois has adopted a new LGBTQ plus Equity Week curriculum that will teach kids in pre-K and kindergarten about people who have more than one gender or no gender at all. Kids in first grade can pick their own pronouns, including Z, Zer, and tree, and are told they can switch pronouns anytime they wish. All feelings are respected all the time. Third graders, generally around 8 years old, are also encouraged to overcome their prejudice that gender is binary. Parents have mounted a counterattack. Our deep concern that our children are being prematurely sexualized and thus confused about their identity is manifest in Florida's Parental Rights and Education Act. Its text plainly states that discussion of sexual orientation is out of bounds.
Okay, is that what we need, Ed? We need really hard laws that are just saying, look, this stuff's out of bounds now?
I think so. But that's got to be led as well by parents. I mean, I don't think parents a lot of the time are awake to what's happening in kindergartens, in childcare centres, and in primary school, let alone high school. It just gets more graphic as the ages go up. So yeah, I think there is. It's an ideology that relies on confusing sex and gender. And it serves no noble purpose for children whatsoever. And like I said, it's having a manifestly bad impact. It is sexualizing our kids. When have you ever heard of 4-year-olds sexually abusing each other in a childcare centre?
Is that American example, consistent with sort of the stuff we're seeing in Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's we see reports every day on the news around this sort of stuff in classrooms, and it manifesting, like I said, in an action that is, abhorrent, often sexual abuse. So,
and it's public and private schools.
Public and private, yeah, absolutely. So you might think just because you're in the private system, you might be your child might be shielded from some of this stuff. But
in religious schools, you might.
Religious schools. I mean, for example, there's a school in Melbourne, Trinity Grammar, that recently engaged a Palestinian queer spokesperson to come into the school and talk to the kids about sexuality and acceptance during Pride Week. This is an Anglican school. supposed Anglican
Okay.
schools. So, and do you want to take a guess at what the average tuition for a year worth of education?
25K or
Yeah,
something
40,000.
like that. 40,000. Oh,
So
there
they're
you
paying
go.
40,000.
Get your kids indoctrinated here.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we might ask that school if they want to defend themselves, but let's move on. Do you believe that transgender ideology should be taught in schools? Was one of the questions that you asked. Let's have a look at the results from that one, if we can get that slide up, John. Do you believe that transgender ideology should be taught in schools? In your survey of members who are conservative-leaning teachers, of course, but the no was high even for that cohort, 91.4% saying no. Second one, does your employer encourage, allow, or ban the display of transgender pride flag stickers, printouts in classrooms or around the school? 57% allow, 25% actually encourage it, and only 17% ban it. Did that surprise you?
I think it did. I mean, I wasn't too surprised, I suppose, because we did this survey after I'd gone to that kindergarten and seen what I saw, and I was a bit taken aback. So the results, as they were coming in, sort of just confirmed what we feared. And I suppose just back to the clip on the American, on what's happening there, they used to say that, the American culture feeds into the Australian culture and it perhaps takes, 5 years or so to reach us. But the thing is now it's instantaneous. So some of these most corrosive ideologies and ideas are happening now, and children are on their phones or got access to technology at younger ages. So that is why you're probably not seeing the disconnect between the US and Australia that we might have. This stuff is occurring now, and it's in our schools. It's already in our schools.
God. Okay. Let's have a look at the third question. Do you believe that someone can legitimately become a member of the opposite sex? A biological male through drugs and surgery becomes a female. 16% said yes. 83.9% said no. This next question, do you believe that children should be able to take puberty-blocking drugs, which the CAS review, that's that UK review, and other landmark contemporary studies have indicated are irreversible? 94% no, 6% yes. And do you believe that children should be allowed to have transgender surgery? 97% no. What's caused this surge that we're seeing now, Ed, of students identifying as transgender, do you think? Because over 70% of teachers are putting it down to social contagion, right?
Yeah, well, it's down to social contagion and the policies that are being pushed, and they obviously feed into one another. But this is not organic growth. It's not a matter of, there's a greater acceptance of it, so children are able to say what they might once have suppressed. It's growing like a wildfire, and it's not like our teachers have said. It's not conducive to a flourishing life. Like, we shouldn't be encouraging this stuff. These kids need our greatest attention, and they need our greatest sympathy, because this isn't right. It just isn't right. And teachers have said that overwhelmingly, like you saw, 94 and 97% are against puberty blockers.
I can't see any good reason for it. They justify it by saying we're teaching them about acceptance and tolerance. No, you can do that in high school. You don't have to in primary school. And even in high school, as I said, it's only got to be a fleeting mention. It's just awful. And who would have thought, you put these ideas, you tell primary school kids that they can pick their gender, and then in recess they all want to pick their gender. Hello? Like, you wouldn't have to be too smart to work that one out.
Yeah, well,
that's going to happen.
Who would have thought that children are easily influenced?
Yeah,
and that's why it's just so sinister. And again, and in Queensland, which is one of the more conservative states, I suppose, it's the only majority LNP government on the mainland, across Australia.
That's the only one.
They're letting this stuff happen. They're letting.
Yeah, we've got no opposition. We're well aware of that on this show. Yeah. So what can parents do if they want to fight back? They should just bang on the door of the principals, I guess, and
we'll bang on the door of the principal's office. The frustrating thing, though, the principals, particularly in public education, do not have autonomy. So you've got to bang on the door of your education minister. So whoever your state education minister is, the federal education minister, Jason Clare, as well. This stuff is coming from the top. It's coming from the union as well. And obviously, with the Labor alignment with the unions, you've got to bang on the door of your health minister, of your local MP, and say, hey, this stuff it's not going to cut it anymore. This is not okay. Yeah. What are you doing to our children? And I think it's very clear, if you're not standing up against this sort of stuff, which our teachers believe is child abuse, that's just not okay. Like, that doesn't cut it. It doesn't cut it to be so morally ambivalent towards the butchering of children and towards the confusion of children.
Yeah. All right, Ed. Well, you stay there because I want to chat with you. People also got to bang on the door of the opposition education spokespeople too from the Liberal Party in most states because they're not firing up enough about this. The Alternative Union, TPAA, is part of the Red Union Group, which despite its name is a non-left-wing group of professional associations that people can join instead of their regular union. And they do not channel resources or money to the Labor Party. They also have a nurses union, the Nurses Professional Association of Australia. And nurses have been at the forefront of the fight back against unscientific, unproven gender ideology being driven in treatments on kids. We'll be back in a moment with Ed Schuller from Red Unions to speak more about that. Did you know that with a virtual private network or VPN on your computer, tablet or phone, you can log into your favourite streaming services like Netflix from home with an internet address from anywhere in the world and watch all the shows that they offer in other countries, including stuff in different languages? And using a VPN to route all your internet traffic through a third-party server means that big corporations and big government can't spy on you. If you sign up now with private internet access, we think they're the best VPN servers out there. As a viewer of The Other Side, you can get 83% off the price of your subscription and get online for less than $3 a month. Check it out right now. Go to piavpn.com/otherside. That's piavpn.com/otherside. It's a great service, a rock bottom price, and supporting our sponsor, you are helping to keep The Other Side going and growing. We've been speaking about how conservative teachers around Australia are pushing back hard on trans ideology being presented to kids in schools. The non-left-wing union for teachers, called the Teachers Professional Association of Australia, the TPAA, has run a survey showing 91% of their members believe transgender ideology should not be taught in schools. They're not a small union. They're growing fast because so many teachers do not like the approach of the left-wing teachers' unions around this country on these issues. Why you're not hearing this on mainstream news channels, therefore, is a question we should all be asking ourselves, especially our journalism and media people. The TPAA is part of the Red Union group of non-left-wing unions, which also includes the rapidly growing and influential Nurses Union, the NPAA. Nurses are getting angry as well as teachers because they've been frustrated by the fact that despite a huge government review, which was carried out in the UK, there's been a delay in the pausing of puberty blockers and transgender surgery for children in Australia. The CAS review in the UK was a very big deal. We covered it extensively on this show last year. This UK review found that gender care for children and young people lacked medical evidence and was driven by ideology, not science. It criticised the UK's public health system, the NHS, for rushing young patients into medical treatments without adequate psychological support. And it called for a cautious, evidence-based approach to any gender dysphoria treatment, radically changing the way that the NHS and the UK overall attends to this sort of problem. Now, adding to all of this, last month, an Australian family court judge, Andrew Strum, slammed Australia's top expert on this gender-affirming care, Michelle Telfer. Telfer is the lead author of Australia's guidelines on gender-affirming care, and the judge strongly criticised her for giving misleading evidence, supporting a woman who wanted her 12-year-old child to be prescribed puberty blockers. Judge Strum described the practice as life-altering and irreversible. A big majority of nurses who are members of the NPAA say that there simply isn't enough evidence to support these child gender treatments, despite enthusiasm from the government. Joining me now from Red Unions is one of their national secretaries, Ed Schuller. Ed, the Alternative Nurses Union came out very strongly. They're part of the Red Union group, also a sort of growing division of your organisation. Tell us a little bit about the nursing side of things and how fast that is growing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started back in 2013 on the nurses side of things, started with a group of nurses, which again, were frustrated with mainstream unions. There's a common theme there. And have grown across all of Australia. So only been in operation for about 12, 13 years now, but already 20,000 members across Australia. So we're growing fast, and things like this certainly don't hurt us.
That research that we were talking about also showed that less than 9% of your nurse members believe the current approach to gender-affirming care aligns with the Hippocratic Oath principle of first do no harm, right?
Yeah, well, these are the people that would know best. I mean, these are nurses, it's doctors as well who have taken this oath. It's I think nurses are the most trusted profession across Australia. Like, Australians look to nurses and think, they're safe there, and with good reason, and with good reason with these results as well, because nurses are saying, hang on, this doesn't align. It does feel like we are doing harm by sort of progressing something that just isn't proven. So it's a big ask for any health minister or opposition health spokesperson to expect nurses and doctors and medical professionals to go against the Hippocratic Oath that they took before becoming that professional. And I think there should be a reckoning for any minister that puts that on his constituency.
Are your members sort of saying, look, we're getting kicked if we protest? We're getting disadvantaged in the workplace. It's very scary in the workplace to stand up against this stuff.
Well, I think a big part of science and medicine in particular is always questioning. It's always evolving. So you shouldn't, if you've got any concerns or would like more evidence on any practices, that should be encouraged. And it always had been up until the last sort of 10, 15 years, particularly aligning to this issue. So we've got members that just don't feel like they're able to speak. Again, same with the teachers earlier on. This is the first time nurses and teachers have been asked what they think. It's been the unions that supposedly represent them that have just forced this down their throat, along with weak and also probably more malevolent actors in the government.
Well, this is that thing again of, we need professional associations as well as unions, right? We need, you just can't have it all being left wing all the time, because nurses need representation, and not all nurses are left wing. They're conservative. There are a lot of conservative nurses. There are a lot of middle of the road, normal people that just think this stuff is BS. And one of the big problems I have with gender affirming care, and I don't think people realise this, is that if a child or a teenager comes to a healthcare provider and says, I believe I am of the opposite sex, I believe I have gender dysphoria, the gender affirming care requires them to affirm that.
Yeah.
So how can you be offering, and this is what the Cass review found in the UK, how can you be offering objective, scientific diagnosis of somebody psychiatrically or psychologically if you're supposed to just say, yeah, okay, you are.
Yeah, well,
without saying, it could be depression, it could be anxiety, it could be ADHD, it could be, 65 bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder. There's a million things it could be. Oh no, we're just going to jump to gender dysphoria, and we're going to jump to surgery and puberty blockers.
Yeah, well, that's not what medical care is, and that's what our nurses are saying. And this gender affirming care stuff, I'll just say what it is. It's child genital mutilation, and it's not okay. And our nurses aren't comfortable with it. And there needs to be far more evidence, and at the moment it's not there, so we shouldn't be doing that to children. And this whole idea that kids, there's a reason children don't vote until they're 18. Their brains are still developing. I can think of a lot of things that I used to think were the truth when I was a kid, and it changed from day to day. And I think it's incumbent upon adults, and it's particularly incumbent upon parents and adults in positions of power, like health ministers, to grow up. Grow a pair and probably say to these kids, no, you don't know what's best for yourself now. I know it mightn't sound good, and I know you might not like me for saying it, but I'm going to protect you anyway. That's what being an adult should be a big part of.
There's a lot of evidence now to show that a significant proportion of these kids, if they're left alone, grow up to just turn out to be either just straight or gay.
Yeah.
It's like there's no need to go cutting up the body or going on puberty blockers or anything. Actually, there's no science. It just isn't, and that's the reality. Okay, now, unfortunately, it's not just the Labor and Green governments that are doing nothing to stop all this unscientific medical experimentation on children in our country.
Yep.
The only Liberal National Coalition Party government, majority government in Australia is Queensland. And in Queensland, the health minister is a guy named Tim Nicholls. This is a guy who, we should mention, voted in favour of the Northern States' very, very, very liberal abortion laws, which allow for late-term abortions and quite late abortion on demand at 22 weeks. So he might be in the LNP, but you couldn't call him a social conservative. But coming back to the gender-affirming care stuff, he hasn't been sort of fixing things in any way, shape or form, right? This Tim Nichols fellow.
No, he hasn't. He was dragged kicking and screaming by the deputy, kicking and screaming rather, by the deputy premier, Jared Blay, who, to his credit, switched on with this stuff. He calls it for what it is, and he's the driving force between reality and what Tim Nichols is operating in. So my understanding is that Tim was dragged to that announcement. If you read the media releases and watch the announcement, he certainly wasn't anywhere near as strong or as exuberant as Jared Blay is.
What was the announcement?
So this was the initial pause on puberty blockers back in February,
right.
Which hasn't really taken place because they've just been shafting them over to private clinics. So there hasn't been anything that's happened,
right?
And this is why. And our survey comes after.
And is this because he's in this? He's sort of in an inner city seat, one of these liberal sort of tealy type seats, isn't he? In the richer area of Brisbane or something, where there's probably a lot of well-to-do people with kids who might be a bit on this spectrum.
Potentially, but that might be part of his motive. But when you become a minister, you're the minister for your entire for the entire state in this case. And and you really do wonder, is he better suited as a Teals or a Greens health minister? I mean, this sort of ideological, just complete and utter lunacy that he pushes.
Well, it gets worse with this bloke, unfortunately, because there's Dr. Gillian Spencer, who's a Queensland psychiatrist, quite a senior paediatric Queensland psychiatrist. And she got stood down from her role at the Queensland Children's Hospital under the Labor Party after raising concerns about the gender-affirming model of care. Even though the Cass Review pointed out she was right, she was officially suspended in April 2023. She's since been barred from any clinical work by Queensland Health following comments she made on social media, including the criticism of trans pride flags being in hospital spaces. So basically, she can't work at all. And this new Liberal Party, National Party minister, this Tim Nichols guy, has done nothing to help her or turn this around at all.
No, they've been in government for nearly a year now. We've notified them of what's been happening to Gillian Spencer. They were aware of it.
What are they saying?
Opposition. You get silence. You get crickets that, there's more to the story you don't know. They aren't willing. They aren't willing. They aren't willing to stand up for the truth. At least that's true, I think, of Minister Nichols. But Gillian Spencer, like you said, very well respected psychiatrist. She was invited by the people that ended up standing her down to speak at that forum. So she was actually invited to give her thoughts on the truth around this, and then she raised her concerns, and then she was. This
is just ridiculous, and we're talking about a Liberal National Party government again. Have we got any damn opposition in this country? More than 6,000 people signed a petition calling for Gillian Spencer's reinstatement.
Yep.
She hasn't got any court cases underway, but we've got bureaucrats all over the place attacking her using our taxpayer dollars. There are senior people in the public service who've decided pretty much all by themselves that gender-affirming care is scientific and moral. And you know, she's got a formal complaint with the Queensland Human Rights Commission. She's got the AHPRA, the Australian Health Practitioner Regulatory Authority, the people who silence doctors for speaking out against the COVID shots being forced on people back during COVID.
Yep.
That organisation was trying to shut doctors down. They've just in the past few weeks said they're investigating her over inappropriate social media comments. I mean, who are these people? Who are these people? Go jump in the lake.
Yeah, social media posts is the problem in all this, not the healthcare of children. I mean, that's what Dr. Spencer was standing up for, and you're right. This doesn't cut it. It does get you a bit emotive and angry because you can't even speak out about it a lot of the time.
You can't express an opinion against the dominant paradigm, and if you do, these mongrels in the AHPR, whatever the heck it is, which I don't even think is a federal organisation, some sort of nebulous
prudential body, one of those
collection
regulatory
of state groups or something. And then you've got, I'm sure the e-safety commissioners. She's going to really stand up for Gillian Spencer.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath on that happening.
It's a joke, and we've got no outlet. We've got no way to, the media run away from it. I don't know.
They do, and more to the point, it's the people like you and I can have this conversation, which is awesome and it's important. But it's the people in positions of authority that are refusing that feel muzzled, that they can't speak, or that are stopping people from speaking. So respected psychiatrists, I think, should probably be able to speak about this more than anyone else.
You would think. You would think. And there
Yes.
should be a permission of a diversity of opinion, a provision of diversity of views so that we can have a public discussion and debate about these things instead of having it all shoved down our throats, which is the problem, because you will get a backlash if you have it shoved down people's throats. But we don't have a political opposition in Australia. We simply don't. I'm fed up with the Liberal and National Party now, really fed up. Tried to give them a bit of an inch in my thinking over the years, but I'm just totally fed up with them all now. They've done nothing, and they continue to do nothing to support us. But while our fellow Australians continue to vote for them, or continue to vote for the Labor Party or the Greens as they do, nothing is really going to change.
Well, the evidence isn't great, I suppose, on the LNP's behalf, because, like you said, for the one government, the one mainland government that they have, they're not doing anything on the things that actually matter. They're not doing anything to stand up for truth on this sort of thing in the health system, in the education system. They talk about, we're focusing on the things that matter to Queenslanders. This matters to Queenslanders. This matters to Australians. This matters to any normal human being who can look at an issue and say, hey, you're harming children. Stop doing that.
Yeah.
And the people in positions of power have that chance. So we lay down the gauntlet to ministers like Tim Nichols, but all health and education ministers across the country, step up and do something or step down. It's as simple as that.
Ed, it's been really great having you on the show. Thanks for coming on, mate. People
Thanks.
want to get in touch with Red Unions, they can do so at the website that I think we've had on screen. But yeah, thanks for coming in, and we hope to see you again in the future. Keep up the good fight.
Cheers, Damien. Appreciate
That's the Alternative Nurses Union, MPAA. It's part of the Red Union Group, which, despite its name, is not a left-wing group of professional associations. It's a non-left-wing group of professional associations that people can join instead of their regular union, and they don't channel resources or money to the Labor Party or left-wing causes. They also have a teachers' union, the Teachers Professional Association of Australia. We've been speaking to their National Secretary, Ed Schuller. So if teachers and nurses want to get in touch, as we said, we can check out the website. We'll be back in a sec. And that's all for this episode of The Other Side, your analysis of the best news and commentary without the woke. We'll see you next Friday night. And clips from the show will be dropping throughout the week as usual on our YouTube and Rumble channels, but we really do need your support. So jump onto our website, othersidetv.com.au, and sign up to the exclusive side, where for less than $5 a month or more, if you can help us out, you can indeed become a member and support this show. I'm Damien Curry. Bye for now.
The Other Side with Damien Coorey is Australia's best independent news commentary show, bringing you up to speed on the issues that matter most. Simply subscribe for free on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button and bell, so you'll be notified whenever we post anything. And to really stay in touch, check out our independent website at othersidetv.com.au. You can sign up for free there too, or join the exclusive side and help support our show for less than $5 a month.